Okay, guys, can you see my screen now? I share my screen. Is it visible? Let me know yes or no only. Thank you, Bhakesh. Thank you, Bhaktash. So what about the encryption? Think about my folder. In this folder, in this directory, there are lots of files, lots of types of files are available. You can see, but you cannot click anywhere, or you cannot like this one. What is this one? You can see just as a PDF file. You can see this is the Word file. This is the zip file. This one zip file. This is the installer file. So you can see all the things, but you cannot access. So I am to give you the permission to access this folder. That means I am to share. If I am to share this folder, so I don't want to share this file or this one, or this one to everyone. I need to give some person or a specific person or any group, any organization, they can access my folder or my directory or any file, specific file. So like I need to share this file means this is the PDF file, that file, everyone. So what it will be happen in the backend? You can say this one is a file. I can say this is the file. I can give you the share permission. Then you can access, you can open it, you can use that one. But when you give the permission to other people's, what happened in the backend, there is one process is going on. That one is called encryption and decryption. So what is that encryption? So like this is a zip file. When I encrypt or when I want to share this one, set up the security code to other people using the username and password, so they can use, in that time this file will be make a encrypted file. So what about the encrypted? Encrypted use the some algorithm. So using the algorithm, the files will be not looks like this one. This one means if I double click it, you can see something is written in there, which one we did in the class, and I saved this PDF file, and this is the file. We are working on this so we can see everything. But when anyone wants to hack this file, they cannot see exactly like this way. They can see some garbage value. Some garbage value means like, let's open this one. Let's open this file as a JPG.
Sorry for being late, teacher.
No problem, sir.
I wasn't able to sign in, but I finally get able to get in.
Thank you, sir. At least you come in here.
Thanks. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let's try to open. Okay, I don't want to modify WhatsApp or Notepad fields. Okay, let's try to open in here. And just once. What can we see? We cannot see anything. This is not a video file. This is not a audio file. So my video player cannot open this one. Okay, let's I need to show you some garbage value, garbage output. Not this one, Adobe Acrobat, no. Okay, VMware player, no. Okay, this is the zip file. Okay, let me use this one. Okay, they forcefully open it and they say the file is not displayed in the text editor because it is the either binary or use unsupported text encoding. You can see this one is one command, one word is coming in here. That one is called encoding and decoding. Same thing we can see in here, encryption. Encryption basically, they make the file as a zip way or use the some username and password. You can, otherwise you cannot access that file. If someone who are not has that username and password, they can see like this type of message, or they can see some extra garbage value in their file. So this is the very important encryption. So we are using encryption using some algorithm, and that algorithm actually work with encrypted the file. And you can see almost this one looks like different types of value will be showing here. So when you are using encryption, you need to do the decryption also. So BitLocker, we already watched one video in one class. BitLocker basically use the server basis when you are using server, so you can lock your drive. But nowadays in Windows 11, they also give the access BitLocker. Let's use my drive. Let's go to the C drive. Okay, you can see, okay, there is everything is unlocked. Let me check it. What about this one? Okay, I saw my another computer. They're using BitLocker. That's also be Windows 11, but in here it's not working perfectly BitLocker. That means in Windows 11 they can give the access for BitLocker purposes. BitLocker means some file will be automatically locked, or you can set up some extra authentication for your files. So this is the most important. That's the built-in format from our Windows. Windows give these types of applications. So security actually most important, because if you have a door, you need a security key, security lock. Otherwise, anyone can enter in your house, in your area. So best way when you are making security, use username, use the email address or username with the password. And nowadays everyone use the 2 authentication, 3 authentication, more authentications used. Like you can log in purpose, you can use the username and password. After that, the 2-factor settings you can set. They will send you one SMS to your mobile phone using that number. After that, you can log in. After then, you can set another 3-way. That one is you can set some extra questionnaires for your authentication purpose. You can write down that answer. After then you can log in your account. Like as our CRA account. In the CRA account, you need to use lots of authentication, probably 3 or 4 steps you need to use. After then you can log in your CRA account. If you use anything wrong, then account will be locked for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or 7 days. So it's very dangerous nowadays. So though there are lots of security, but hacker always try to hack in, and they always try to transfer money from one account to another account. Especially the bank accounts are very important for them. So let's you can see some security purposes. We are using password. The common password is this one. Most common password is password. Another thing, family member's name. Another thing, your card name. Another thing, birth date. Another thing's your pet. We are using that one. But best way when you're writing your password, not use same password to everywhere. Like if you have bank account, if you have any other secure documents, like you can see in my in here, there is 1, 2, 3 Google account is there. This Google account has 100 GB. In here 15 GB, in here 15 GB. I'm not using same password in these 3 Google account. So I always change the password. Best way, change the password every 7 days. But it's very difficult to remember all the password. So at least change the password, or not use same password to everywhere. So use the different types of password, and don't use your name, your family member's name. You can use just a combination. Write down some is uppercase, after then lowercase, after then any special character, any number, after then rest of name. Like you can write down that way. But Obviously, it's secure. Okay. Otherwise, anyone can access, anyone can hack your all the data. Data basically we are using the bank informations. Normally people are looking for your bank informations because there is money. So if anyone knows your bank account number or your authentication number, they can send or they can transfer money from one account to another account. Though in the accounts, the bank has defaultly set up 1,000 or 2,000, not more than 1,000 or 2,000 in a day. You cannot transfer, but it's very risky. So always try to use secure password. Like you can see in here, this is the Windows, whatever that Windows, they did not mention it in here. So when you want to log in, at least you need to use the password. Previously, when we use Windows 98, Windows 95, Windows Millennium 2000, in that time, if I want, I can use the password. If I don't want, I cannot use the password. Nowadays, actually, when you want to install your Windows, they want your email address. After then, they want the password for your login purposes. Nowadays is default. We need to use. That's the security purpose we are using. So, and another thing, very common thing, we write down our password. Like here, somebody write down this computer password. Asmat. Okay, somebody write down their password in here. So don't do like that way, because it's very difficult to remember all the password. But at least you need to keep it in your mind or keep it in any secure file. Otherwise, anyone can hack your file, folder, or anything. And don't write down anywhere like this way. Another thing, especially the computer, like this is my computer. So I know where is my files. And when you use this computer to in the college or in your workstation, someone always be looking for your computer. Why? Maybe they would like to use any specific thing, anything they want to like to use that one. So when you go outside, don't turn on your computer like this way. So always lock it. That means when you don't want to use your computer, shut down your computer or lock it, sign out. That's the best practice. But if you know that specific person or any other specific location, then you can, you don't need to shut down or sign out. But best practice, always when you are not using your computer, sign out your computer. That's the security purpose only one, that one used. So in here, some security management, some best practices they're using. So let's watch one video from the test out. After then, we'll discuss again more about the security. So actually, all over the world nowadays think about the security. So for this reason, the another term is come cyber security. If you know about the cyber security, if you know some algorithm, if you know how to encode it, how to decode it, if you know make some new algorithm, cyber crime purposes, so then you can make money. So cyber security is the most popular part nowadays. So let's watch some video from the test out. After then again, we'll come back in here. So give me 1 second. I need to log in. So this is our last week for our this course, CompTIA course. So this is the CompTIA part 2 we are doing right now. So please, at least when you graduate, before that, please make one certificate. Make one certificate means CCNA, CCNP, CompTIA, Windows, whatever any course, which one you prefer, which one you want to like to use in the market, in the practical field, job field, any certificate you have, then it will be very easy to get the job. Otherwise, you can get the job, but the salary will be changed. So please try to certify at least one certificate. So this is the very preliminary certification, which one is CompTIA A+. For that one, you need to pay, you need to do 2 certificates, CompTIA Core 1 and CompTIA Core 2. Then the combination will be 1 certificate. Or you can do any others. But at least make 1 certificate, at least do 1 certificate or certification in your career. Then it will be helpful for your job purposes. Let's watch some video from incident response and data regulated data. So I need to share my screen again. Give me 1 second. Sorry. And let me know you can hear everything. Okay, before playing this video, I need to talk with the Kitty. Kitty, can you hear me? Kitty? Kitty, what is the problem? Can you write down it? Before you write, you can check your grade into the ct.mpeducator.com. And if anything missing, let me know. And you can send 1 email to the college. Then college will give me the permission. Then I will send you all the things. And after that, you can submit it and I will update your grade. So please check that one. Yes, Kitty, I saw that one, but what is the problem? I don't know. You need to mention exactly what is your problem. Okay. And please try to send 1 email to the college and college will give me the permission. So I am not giving you any permission because that all the courses are already, due date is all gone. Okay. Thank you, Kitty. So let's watch this video. Give me 1 second. Okay, let me know you can hear or not. Guys, can you hear?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Kitty. Thank you, Samsudon. Okay, I need to play.
A security incident can be catastrophic to any organization. Data theft, malware, or even access to prohibited content can have severe ramifications and are all examples of incidents that you might encounter. All organizations, regardless of size, should have a detailed security policy that establishes what's allowed on the network, along with a detailed incident response plan that clearly states the steps to take to correct the issue. In this lesson, we'll look at the incident response process in detail. We'll go over detection, response, chain of custody, reporting, and follow-up. When a security incident occurs, it's imperative that you contain everything as soon as you become aware of it. A security incident can be discovered passively, actively, or proactively. Let's look at what each of these means. Passive detection occurs when security incidents are discovered while we're not actively looking for them. Oftentimes, we just stumble across prohibited content on a computer when we perform maintenance or something of the sort. For example, you might happen to notice some additional network traffic while you're reviewing logs. Passive detection techniques can also help us determine what happened and how. Active detection is when we actively search for any ongoing security incidents. When your IDS detects malicious traffic and alerts you, this is active detection. Active detection is important because it helps us discover a security incident that's occurring at that moment so that we can stop it. Finally, we have proactive detection. The best examples of this are penetration testing and threat hunting. Proactive detection is when an organization actively seeks out existing security flaws so they can be closed before they're discovered and exploited. Regardless of the detection method we choose, once we discover a security incident, we need to respond to it. Let's see what that looks like. An organization's security policy should clearly define who the first responder is. This is the person or team that should be notified immediately when an incident comes up. The first responder is responsible for securing the system and collecting all of the evidence. The first and most important step is to mitigate the damage. If the incident is ongoing, they need to first stop it and make sure that it's contained before anything else. Once the threat is contained, the first responder needs to start gathering evidence. Let's assume that we're the first responder in this situation. To gather evidence, we use special tools to capture system images and data, but we should also take pictures of screens, interview witnesses, and write down all of the details like time, location, and other pertinent information. The main goal is to make sure that everything is as detailed as possible and that we secure as much evidence as possible before it's out of our reach. So, when a first responder gets access to the system, they grab whatever data they can as quickly as they can. They capture this data in order of volatility. The first stop is the computer's RAM. If the computer is rebooted or turned off, any content stored in RAM will be lost, so this needs to be preserved immediately. Next is the swap file. If a running process isn't in RAM and is operating in the background swap file, we need to make sure that we get that information. We should copy all of this to an external drive for safekeeping. After the swap file, we want to check for any network connections or systems processes that might have played a part. This can include active connections, browser history, or any evidence showing that a system process was exploited. We save these logs to an external drive as well. Finally, we want to secure any file evidence. This would include backing up any prohibited content, suspicious files, application files, or really anything saved on the file system itself. Once we've secured this evidence, we create a sector-by-sector copy of the hard drive. This is an evidence-grade image of the drive and all data on it. There's special software called a write blocker that'll make the drive read-only in order to prevent any data from being accidentally altered or deleted. The overall goal is to establish who, what, when, where, how, and possibly why the incident occurred. Now, we've been discussing these steps as if we were the first responder, but let's make one thing clear. Only someone who's properly trained in computer forensics should try and gather evidence from the hard disk drive. Don't do it yourself unless you're trained. If you do, and you do it incorrectly, it's very likely that you've just compromised the integrity of the evidence. As a result, it may not hold up in court. To ensure that the data remains untainted, follow the proper chain of custody at all times. Chain of custody refers to the procedures we use to detail the handling of the evidence. This should document everything about the system itself, including serial numbers, makes, and models. Whenever anyone touches or moves evidence, you need to document who was in contact with it, why, and what, if anything, was altered. This documentation is absolutely vital. If the chain of custody is ever broken, doubt can be cast on the evidence from that point on. Okay, once the evidence has been collected, you need to report the incident to the appropriate authorities. This could be law enforcement or a special team within the organization. Look at the security policy to know who you need to contact. After the investigation has been handed off to the proper authorities, we need things to get back to normal. This might mean replacing a user's workstation so that they can get back to work, or it might mean having to completely reconfigure a server system that was infected with malware. The goal is to get users back in business with as little downtime as possible. Every situation is going to be different and will require different solutions. We also need to make sure that all affected systems have been fully remediated. This means that all traces of the incident are cleared and all systems are verified to be working properly. Part of the remediation process is to implement any changes necessary to prevent the security incident from ever happening again. Always remember to document these planned changes. The last step is to review the incident and go over remediation steps, often during what's called a hot wash meeting. During this meeting, we look at everything and take recommendations to prevent the incident from happening again, or at the very least, improve our response the next time. To wrap things up, always remember to take these incidents seriously, even if they seem relatively minor. No one should ever take it upon themselves to do something outside the scope of their authority, as this can lead to further damage and maybe even legal ramifications for the individual. Don't let that be you. In this lesson, we went over each step involved in the process of responding to a security incident. The process starts with detection through one of three methods: passive, active, or proactive discovery. The first responder is the one who goes to work gathering all of the evidence they can while ensuring that the chain of custody is never broken. The incident is then reported to the proper authorities so that they can investigate further. At this point, it's time to get things back to normal, ensure that all affected systems are remediated, and then have a hot wash meeting to review everything and make recommendations for any future changes.
Most organizations handle different types of customer and employee data. Things like financial, personal, and healthcare information are all regulated, and there are strict requirements on where and how long to store it. In this lesson, we'll look at some of the laws and regulations you should be aware of as an IT professional so that you don't run into complications that could hinder your work or put you in legal jeopardy. Our financial data is extremely important to us, and we, like our customers and clients, have the expectation that whoever is holding it is keeping it secure. Let's look at some of the specific regulations that have been established to protect financial data. Chances are you've used a credit or debit card to pay for something before. The Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards, or PCI DSS, defines the security standards for any organization that handles payment cards. The PCI DSS defines 12 requirements under 6 categories that an organization must adhere to if they want to process these cards. We have it all broken down here on this chart for you. Next is a congressional act we call SOX. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act was enacted in 2002 and applies to any company that's publicly traded on the stock market. SOX regulates how these companies handle and maintain their financial records. The goal is to increase transparency and formalize a system of checks and balances. Then we have the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, or GLBA. This law applies to any financial institution that offers loans, investment advice, or insurance. The GLBA defines how to keep customers' data safe and how the company can share it. The FTC is responsible for enforcing GLBA compliance, so it's something the government takes seriously. Aside from our financial information, organizations have a responsibility to keep our personal information secure as well. Throughout your life, you generate a lot of personal information. Think of government-issued information such as your driver's license and social security number. Other personal information like your address history, credit score, student loans, employment records, and so on can piece together an eerily accurate portrait of your life. In today's digital world, it's vital that we keep this information safe from potential threats. Many of the regulations that govern different industries also include rules to keep this data safe. For example, educational institutes keep student records that contain a lot of personal information. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, clearly outlines how this sensitive information must be stored, who it can be shared with, and how long records must be kept for. The Department of Education defines and enforces FERPA. Two other regulations that define personal data protection are the California Consumer Privacy Act, or CCPA, and the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. Both of these are designed to provide individuals with transparency and control as to how companies are using their personal data. The CCPA only applies to organizations that operate in California, and the GDPR only applies to companies in the EU. But many companies do business across state or country lines, and if they do any business in these areas, they must comply with these regulations. That means that individuals living in other states or countries can take advantage of these regulations as well. There are many other laws and regulations out there that are designed to protect your information. Remember that these regulations should guide the policies that an organization puts in place, including how long customer data is retained. Each organization will have specific regulations that apply more or less to them. Okay, now let's take a look at how our healthcare data is protected. Our healthcare data is extremely sensitive, just like the other types of personal information we've talked about. The Health Insurance Portability and Accounting Act, which is commonly referred to as HIPAA, is the main law that defines how this data is secured. HIPAA is enforced by the Department of Health and Sciences. Now, HIPAA contains two parts: the HIPAA Privacy Rule, which defines how to secure health information generally, whether it's handwritten or electronic, and the HIPAA Security Rule, which defines how to protect electronic health information specifically. Healthcare IT departments are primarily responsible for making sure these rules are followed. And know that any HIPAA violations will lead to massive fines. Okay, that'll wrap up this lesson on data regulations. In this lesson, we focused on the rules that govern how we keep and secure financial, personal, and healthcare information in the modern world. Every industry will have regulations that they must abide by, so make sure you look more deeply at the ones you suspect may affect you most in your chosen field of work. Implementing security measures on our networks is very important, so we need to make it as difficult as possible for hackers to gain access to sensitive data or anything valuable we might have. Now, if a hacker is able to gain physical access to a workstation or server, it becomes almost effortless for them to run any attack they want. So in this lesson, we'll look at some external and internal security measures we can implement to prevent this. Let's start by looking at the outside of a building and the security measures that harden access to the building itself. Our first line of defense should be a fence. It should be high enough to prevent someone from climbing it and should be installed so that it only has one entry point. Ideally, you want this fence to be at least 20 feet away from the building. This gap helps protect your facility by increasing the viewable area between the fence and the building itself. Installing a tall fence like this means that the only way someone is getting through is to climb it or cut it, which will be fairly obvious. At the entry point, we should have a guard station that's always occupied. The security guard should have an access list that explicitly states who's allowed into the facility. Any visitors should have appointments and should be on the list. They should also be escorted at all times and never allowed to wander around on their own. Bollards go on the outside of a building as another barrier. Bollards are strong metal poles that prevent vehicle access. We should install security cameras around the building's perimeter. These cameras should cover all areas of the property, which needs to be well lit. This makes it more difficult for someone to sneak around the building and allows the camera to get a clearer picture of them. Motion sensors can also be implemented. Motion sensors work well to turn on the outside lights or to send an alert if someone enters an unauthorized room. At the main entrance, we also want to have a system in place to manage who can enter. Badge readers are a great option since they're common and not too difficult to install. Basically, each authorized user is given a badge, and they must use their badge to open the door. Let's move on to what we do inside the building's premises. Before we look at this, though, two problems that need to be addressed are piggybacking and tailgating. This is when someone attempts to enter the building by following closely behind an authorized person, or sneaks in with a group of authorized people. To prevent this, we can implement an access control vestibule, or ACV, as the first room of a high-security area. The ACV is a specialized entrance with two doors that creates a security buffer zone between two areas. Once a person enters the space between the doors, both doors lock. At this point, the person must provide authentication credentials, such as an access badge or a biometric scan. If the credentials are valid, the second door unlocks, and the individual can enter. Having a security guard to monitor the ACV makes it more effective as well. At the front door, we might also want to implement a magnetometer security system. A magnetometer is a metal detector that users walk through to detect if they're bringing any weapons or unauthorized equipment into the building. In the building, we need to make sure that our equipment is secured. The first step is to make sure we have locks on all the doors and that users know to close and lock the doors when the rooms aren't in use. On the equipment itself, we can use cable locks to physically tether the workstations and laptops to the desks. We should always lock the server racks along with other hardware. Really, anything important should be kept in locked rooms or specialized boxes. All our doors, racks, hardware cabinets, or places with sensitive equipment or personal data should have alarm mechanisms. If someone attempts to break in, the alarm can alert security to the threat. When installing locks, we have a few types to choose from. Of course, we have traditional locks that use a physical key, but we also have key fobs, smart cards, or even biometric locks. Key fobs are a keyless entry system that provide authentication to a specific lock. They use either a wireless radio signal, NFC, which is short for Near Field Communication, or Bluetooth to communicate with the lock. Smart cards are similar in that they provide authentication to a specific lock, but they often use RFID, which is short for Radio Frequency Identification, or NFC, and need to be scanned by a special reader. A biometric lock opens based on a unique physical trait of an authorized user. Common ones include fingerprint, palm print, or retina scanners. Biometric locks do require a bit of setup, but they're extremely secure. As you can see, there's a lot of options when it comes to physical security. It's usually not reasonable to implement every single security option we've covered, but each building should have the appropriate physical security measures for its needs. In this lesson, we covered many of the physical security options we have available. We started by looking at security options for the outside perimeter of a building. These include security guards, high fences, cameras, and lighting. Then we looked at some security options for the inside. These are things like access control vestibules, different types of locks, and biometric scanners.
In this demonstration, we're going to configure biometric authentication systems for Windows. I'm going to use the biometric scanner that's built into the hardware of this laptop, a fingerprint scanner. Now, in order for a computer to use biometrics to authenticate, software to support the login needs to be on the system. This system has software to handle our fingerprint reader. Each biometric device will need to be supported on the system you wish to use. So based on the type of device you use, you'll configure the operating system to authenticate using the biometrics it offers. Your fingerprint, your face, or something else. Before authenticating with biometrics, you'll need to register with the device. For example, a fingerprint reader such as the one I'm using, I'll need to register my fingerprint with the device by having it scan the finger a few times. Once registered, that same fingerprint can then be used to authenticate. Authentication happens when the registered biometric, our fingerprint, is compared to the fingerprint that's being scanned on the device. If they match, authentication is granted. Now, keep in mind that with fingerprints, if your hands are wet or dirty, it'll be harder for your biometric system to authenticate you, and your fingerprint will be less likely to match with your previous scan. Let's demonstrate how to register a fingerprint with the system. I'll search for fingerprint, then click on the Set up Fingerprint Sign-in option. This opens the Sign-in Options settings page. I'll click on Fingerprint Recognition, Windows Hello, then click on Set Up. We're prompted to enter our PIN, a backup authentication method, in case the fingerprint isn't available. I've already set up the PIN, but if the PIN hadn't been defined, I would be prompted to configure it. Now it's asking me to put my finger on the scanner. Then it'll ask me to pick it up and set it down on the reader multiple times while it takes a detailed capture of the fingerprint. Now this may take a few moments to complete. Now our configuration is done and the fingerprint scanner is ready to be used to log on to the system. You also have the option to add another finger. I only need the one, so that's all I'm going to add. And that's it for this demonstration. We talked about how to register your fingerprint with the biometric authentication system.
Thank you, Mahir. Thank you. I mute myself and I am talking. Thank you. So let's set up the fingerprinting. So I did not set up fingerprinting in my computer. My computer has that option. So let's try to do that one. So I write down in the search option finger. So set up finger sign in. So I click in there. Then settings option will become automatically. By default, this option, fingerprinting option, is available for Windows 11 as well as Windows 10. But if the fingerprint option is not available in your computer, so you don't need to do that one. If it's available, you can do. In my laptop, it's available, so I can do that one. Let's set up this one. So click into the setup. Then I can see the welcome message. Let's get started. So I have a PIN. So PIN is actually working for the save all the things. So I need to set up the fingerprint. So 1 time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they are saying to me, do like this way. Okay, now it's set. You can see all set. Use your fingerprint next time you want to unlock your device. So close it. Now my fingerprint is set up in there. But one thing is interesting. Okay, let me search my computer into the online. Because this laptop is a little bit different than my previous laptop. So what is the name of this one? This is the Dell. Okay, there is no number. Let's write down Dell Intel laptop. Give me 1 second. Actually, what I need to show you, most of the time when we are using our fingerprint, let's go to the Costco. Actually, I buy it from the Costco. So Costco, okay, let's go there. This is 1631 terabyte. Oh my god, this is my laptop. Only 1400. I buy it 1700. Okay, what I have to show you actually. Okay, click to tab zoom. Okay, you can see this option. Okay, let's use the snipping tools. This is the fingerprint key. That means when you want to set up your fingerprint, this one just like as a key. These all the types of key. Normally, what we think, fingerprint means there will be some ray will become fingerprint, finger. Security checker. Let's some device we can see. Okay, normal sense, we are thinking like this type of, there will be one button or this type of device we can see. Like here, blue color or green color, your finger will be in there and the code or your gate will be unlocked. Normal sense, there will be one glass. But nowadays, they change the theory. They change the finger option. That one is just like as a button. This button actually works for two things. This is the power button, as well as this button is also work for the finger access. That means you can see already, I already set up the finger key. That means when I want to log in my computer, I can use either fingerprint or I can use my lock. That means password, that means key. So day by day, actually devices are upgrading. So as a result, nowadays, not only this type of fingerprint device is available, nowadays, this type of device also be available. That means it looks like button, but it's not a button. It's a power button as well as finger recognition device or finger recognition key. So always they're upgrading, changing lots of things, and we can see how to set up the fingerprint. If I don't want, I can remove it. If you need, so you can set up another finger. Like as pin, I set up in here, so I always use the pin because it's easy to remember. In the finger, you can see I need to recognize lots of times, maybe 6 or 7 times. So when my computer need to unlock, I need to use that finger. So as well as pin, I can use same pin in all of my computers, or you can change it if you want, remove it. If you want to change it, you can use nowadays not only number, combination of number. These all the features are coming in our Windows 11. So based on our device, based on our operating system, everything now working together. So let's go to the again test out, or let's watch another few more video from the test out. This is the very common device we are using in our banking purposes or lock door purposes. I want to share my screen again. Give me 1 second. Let me know you can hear. Can you hear?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Logical security refers to the security measures we implement through the operating system and software. Protecting our devices and networks involves more than just making sure we've physically secured everything. In this lesson, we're going to go over some logical security measures that we should implement on our devices and networks, including authentication, mobile device management, and certificate manager. The first step in protecting our networks is to make sure that anyone trying to connect is actually allowed to be there. This is known as authentication. Authentication is the process in which users provide credentials to prove their identity. Authorization, on the other hand, is the process of determining the resources a user can access and the actions that user can perform. Now, when a user is authorized on a device, they don't automatically have full access to everything on it. In fact, we want to follow what's called the principle of least privilege. This means that a user is only given access to the resources they need to perform their job. For example, someone working in the technical support department would only need access to support documents, an internal knowledge base, or other related resources. They shouldn't need to access anything from human resources or the accounting departments. Users should also not be able to change system settings, install programs, edit the registry, or make other high-level changes on their workstations. Windows enforces this by using access control lists, or ACLs. An ACL is stored on the master file table, or MFT, and keeps track of all the permissions for users and groups. It's a special partition that's created when Windows is installed. When we make changes to any permissions on a file or folder, the ACL is updated with that new information. We obviously can't just look at a user and confirm their identity while they're logging onto a system. That's why there are several ways to prove identity remotely. Users do this by demonstrating something they know, such as a username and password, something they have, which can be a smart card, for example, or something they are, such as using their fingerprint on a biometric login device. To improve our security, we want to implement multi-factor authentication. This means that users must provide at least 2 of these options. For example, we might have a user input a username and password and then also provide a fingerprint for extra verification. Implementing multi-factor authentication will greatly increase the security of our devices. So let's look at some other common multi-factor authentication methods. It's quite common now that when we register for a new account somewhere or use a new device, we're sent a one-time code that we have to put in to prove who we are. These codes can be sent through email, SMS text message, or even a voice phone call. This one-time code is usually used alongside a username and password, which is something we know. And the code falls under something we have because we should be the only one with access to our email or phone. Authentication apps are another often used multi-factor authentication method. These apps are installed on a user's device, like their smartphone or tablet. When they attempt to log in, they must also open the authentication app to approve the login. These authentication methods are all known as soft tokens. A soft token is just a simple digital authentication key, like the one-time code, clickable link, or authentication app. For more advanced security, we can use what's called a hard token. A hard token is a hardware authentication device that requires the user to be in possession of a particular device. Hard tokens come in different forms, such as USB devices, key fobs, smart cards, and more. Since hard tokens require you to have physical access to the resource, they provide a very high level of security. But they can be expensive to implement, and if a user loses their token, the security breach can be quite severe. Regardless of the methods we use, multi-factor authentication greatly increases our system security. But now let's look at how we can implement mobile device management to improve our security even more. We use mobile devices more and more for both productivity and entertainment purposes. Using these devices in an organization provides a lot of benefits, but it does come with its own security risks. To help combat these risks, an organization should implement mobile device management, or MDM. MDM refers to the policies and procedures that an organization puts into place to maintain mobile device security. Administrators can implement MDM software to enforce these security policies. MDM software usually offers a suite of features, including policy management, security management, inventory management, telecom service management, and mobile application management. A BYOD policy stands for a Bring Your Own Device policy, which is what it sounds like, the rules for how personal devices can be used on company time. Implementing a BYOD policy or distributing company-owned mobile devices both come with quite a few security risks, and that's where an MDM policy comes in handy. MDM software is typically deployed as an agent on the mobile device that communicates with the backend server. The application receives settings from the server to regulate the mobile device. Passcode enforcement is one helpful MDM feature. If this is enabled, a device won't be allowed to connect unless an appropriate passcode is used. Lockout policies are also a good option. If a device is lost, the administrator can lock it remotely and keep it from bad actors. The administrator should be able to remotely wipe the device as well. Additionally, an MDM solution should be able to detect if a device has been rooted or modified in some way. Jailbreaking or rooting a device can lead to security concerns, and these devices shouldn't be allowed to connect to organizational resources. Finally, the MDM agent can send real-time alerts and resource monitoring data. This helps the administrators know immediately if anything on the device falls outside the norms. These are just a few of the features that an MDM solution can provide to an organization. As we said, a BYOD policy can be extremely beneficial, but a strong MDM solution should be in place to help mitigate the risks involved. Okay, now let's take a look at how we can use certificates to improve our logical security. Digital certificates are used to identify a user, computer, or an organization. There are many different types of certificates, and they work in a variety of ways. One common method to create a certificate is to use a private key and a public key. The public key is stored in the certificate, and the private key is kept safe by the owner. When the owner of the private key needs to verify themselves, the certificate is used to match the keys. If the key pairs match, the owner is authenticated. We use certificates to verify users, computers, emails, websites, and more. Because there are so many types, we need an easy way to manage them all on our systems. This is where Windows Certificate Manager comes in. Certificate Manager is an applet on Windows that keeps track of all of our certificates. On the enterprise level, we can use Certificate Manager to create self-signed certificates, back up our certificate database, or import certificates manually. Without Certificate Manager, managing all of the certificates we run across would get extremely tedious. That'll wrap up this lesson on logical security. We went over the many different authentication methods and how they can be used together for multi-factor authentication. Then we covered how a mobile device management solution can make securing mobile devices easier for organizations. We wrapped up by looking at Windows Certificate Manager and how we can use this tool to keep track of all our certificates in one place.
In this demonstration, we're going to talk about how to configure a screensaver password. This requires a user to re-authenticate to get past the screensaver and back on the system again. This is a good first security measure, but it's not perfect. A much better solution is to train your users to either lock their systems or log out all the way before they leave them unattended, even if it's going to be just for a few minutes. On this Windows 11 system, I can right-click on the Windows icon down here, go to Shut Down or Sign Out, and click Sign Out before I leave my computer. This prevents a malicious insider from finding my system unattended and accessing it. The biggest problem is making sure that users actually remember to do this. To help them out, we can configure a screensaver password in the event that a user does forget. To do so, we just click on the Windows button or the search button and type screensaver. The screensaver we want can be selected from the drop-down menu here, and we can also specify how long the system must be idle before the screensaver kicks in. Then we select the On Resume Display Logon Screen option to require the user to re-authenticate before they can get back on. All right, I've picked a screensaver and set it to display the logon screen. I've also set a wait time of 3 minutes. When the user comes back and either moves the mouse or types a key on the keyboard, the logon screen will display, and they'll have to re-authenticate before being allowed to use the system again. At this point, I'll just wait for the screensaver to start and then re-authenticate. There you have it. I'm back in. That's it for this demonstration. We talked about how to configure a screensaver password on a Windows 11 machine.
Let's do one lab. Screensaver password. Set up this one. So I'm to share my screen again. Okay, can you see my screen? Is it visible?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I can do in my computer screensaver password, but if I can do that one, I cannot log in or log out from my computer. That means you cannot see that thing. So let's try to do that one in the test out. So restart the lab. This one is very effective because sometimes we forget that my computer is turned on. Somebody can sit in behind my computer, or somebody sit in my computer and they can do anything. So best practice, shut down. Second practice, sign out. And this is the another practice. So what I need to do? In the scenario they said, you are the IT administrator for a small corporate network. The receptionist in the lobby is connected that while he is away from his desk. Someone might be able to access the files on his computer. You need to help him protect his computer with a screensaver that requires the password. In this lab, your task is to enable the screensaver using a screensaver type of your choice. So this feature basically used only for our Windows 11. In Windows, that one is available in Windows 11, but in Linux, that one used from the starting. That means in Windows, in Linux by default, when you are away from at least 1 minute or 2 minutes, it's automatically sign out or log out. You can change the time, you can do everything, but by default, that one is available. So I write down in here is screen. Change screensaver, actually that one is coming in here. So let's click in there. Enable the screensaver using the screensaver type. Okay, start the screensaver after 10 minutes inactive. Oh my God. They said I need to let's use anything. You can choose any screensaver. Screensaver means any picture or any by default GIF file, or you can save any other photos like using the settings or any other things. You can do that one. So they said we need to set up screensaver for 10 minutes inactive. So I don't want to use the 10 minutes because 10 minutes will be huge time. So I set up this photo and let's use the 1 minute. And on resume display logon screen, click in here. But there is no password. Okay, I don't know about any password, so I cannot log in next time maybe. Let me try it. So how come you can configure that one? So you can do one thing. First, you need to go to the search option in here. After then, write down the screensaver. Then this window will be automatically come. You need to select any picture from in here, or you can use other picture. Maybe there is. So all the features are disabled in here. You can change that one. You can save more screensaver. You can download from internet or anywhere. So I choose this one, photos. And in here, by default, they said use the 10 minute. I don't want to use the 10 minutes. Let me take use the only 1 minute and use this checkbox, because this one means after 1 minute, actually your computer will be signed out. Okay, by default. So apply. Okay. So let's wait 1 minute. I don't want to touch anywhere. So if it's idle, then after 1 minute, maybe this one will be log out. Let's try to wait for 1 minute. Now it's 6:44. Let's wait at least 1 minute, 6:45. Please wait. It's 6:45. Let's wait a couple of more seconds. Hopefully, in between that time, the computer will be log out. I don't want to touch, otherwise it never will work. So this one is not working. Okay, maybe show the log on screen when the computer workups. Okay, wait a few more seconds. Let me check it. Is it working or not? Now you can try in your computer when you set up the screensaver, and that one will be log out, or that can sign out from your Windows. So it's not working. Maybe something disable from in here. Let me click into the Xcode, then we can see what is the problem. Enable the screensaver 10 minutes. We did not do this one. Rest of thing. So they said select on resume. Okay, no. Configure 10 minutes. Okay, from the screensaver setting saver drop down menu. Actually, there is no more option. That means this one is not sign out. So you can check it in your computer, how to set up the screensaver. I can do in my computer, but if it's sign out, then you cannot see. I will be log out. So you can practice this screensaver password. Password basically, we don't need to set up because of only one thing. When you want to sign in your computer, you need to use the password. That means after 10 minutes or after 1 minute, whatever that times, after that, your computer will be automatically, okay, let me try check it in here. When you set up any image, anything, after 1 minute, it automatically, when you click in here, it's automatically will be log off. That means sign out. So for this reason, you don't need to set up any password. The password is automatically set up when you install your operating system in that time. For this server, we don't need to use anything. So I already did it. So I can see everything is 0 now. Okay. Let's go to the next step. This is the one type of, you can say, security. Security is the most important nowadays. So Linux, in Linux, let's watch this one. So I need to share my screen again. Otherwise, you cannot hear anything.
In this demonstration, we're going to spend some time talking about authentication management. On a Linux system, there are two general categories of users. There are standard users, and there's a super user. The super user account on Linux is the root user. It's equivalent to the administrator user. On a Linux system, root can do anything on the system, while a standard user such as my demo user cannot. As a general best practice, when you're using your system to perform day-to-day work, you should log in as a non-root user. In this case, I'm logged in as my demo user. But when I need to perform an administrative task on the system, I'll probably need to elevate privileges from my standard user account to the root super user account. There are two different ways you can do this. One is to use the switch user command su. You can use the switch user command to switch to a different user account on the system. It can be any account on the system. For example, I could type su ksanders and press enter to switch to the ksanders user account, but that's not terribly useful in most cases. If I don't specify a user account at all, the system switches to the root user account by default. When you run the su command, you should include a space followed by a dash. For example, type su dash and press enter. This tells the switch user command to switch to the root user because we didn't specify any other user account. The dash tells the su command to load all of the environment variables for the root user account, which basically lets you do all of the things you need to do as the root user. Of course, you have to authenticate as the root user, so we enter in the root user's password. Notice that the prompt has changed. I'm not logged in as demo anymore. I'm logged in as the super user root at Ubuntu demo. Now I can do tasks with elevated privilege requirements. When I'm ready to switch back to my standard demo user account, all I have to do is type exit and I'm logged out as the root and switched back to my demo user account. There's a second way you can gain administrative level privileges to the system besides su, and that's using a command called sudo. Some distributions implement sudo by default and others don't. The Ubuntu distribution I'm using here does. Sudo provides a more elegant solution than the su command. With su, I basically have an all or nothing option. I can either be a standard user or a super user, nothing in between. Sudo, on the other hand, allows the system administrator to assign my user account demo super user privileges to perform certain tasks via sudo. For example, I could say, demo user, you're allowed to install new software on the system but nothing else. By doing this, I create a special category of super users who are allowed to perform some tasks as root, but not others. Please be aware that before you can use sudo, it does have to be configured and enabled on the system. As we said earlier, some distributions have it enabled by default, others don't. It is enabled by default on the Ubuntu system. To use sudo, type the sudo command first and then a space followed by the command that you want to run with root level privileges. For example, on this system, my demo user is allowed to install new software with root level privileges. The standard demo user can't do that, but using sudo, I can temporarily gain root level access to the system and complete the task at hand. Let's suppose that I want to use sudo to run the apt-get command. The apt-get command is used to go to the internet, download a particular piece of software from the Ubuntu software repositories, and then install it on the system. In this case, I want to use sudo to run apt-get with superuser privileges. I'm going to tell apt-get to install a package named 3D Chess. It's a game. The command is sudo apt-get install 3D Chess and press enter. Notice that I'm prompted to authenticate as a demo user. I have to enter my password to make sure it's me running the sudo command. After I authenticate, apt-get gets the software from the Internet repository and installs it on the system. Notice that I did not use su during this process. Sudo granted my demo user temporary root level privileges to run this command to install software on the system. All right, let's talk about managing user passwords. This is done from the command prompt using the passwd command, which stands for password. If you're currently logged in as a standard user, such as our demo user, then I'm allowed to change the password only for my user account. This makes sense because you don't want standard users on the system changing each other's passwords. That wouldn't be good. So if I type passwd, I'm able to change the password for the demo user. If I want to change the password for a different user, I have to switch to my root user account. We'll use the su command to do that. Type su dash and press enter. Now let's suppose I want to change the password for the ksanders user account on this system. I would type passwd, ksanders, and press enter. The system tells me that I'm changing the password for the ksanders user. Enter a new password for ksanders at the new password prompt. One of the nice things about the password command is that it checks to see if you're using a strong password. If not, you'll get a message such as bad password. The password fails the dictionary check. It is based on a dictionary word. I get this message because the password fails the dictionary check. This means that part of the password that I just entered is found in the dictionary, which makes it susceptible to dictionary-based password cracking attacks. However, it says if you want to use it, go ahead and do it anyway. So in this example, I can confirm the password. At this point, I've changed the password for the ksanders user. That's it for this demonstration. In this demo, we talked about authentication management commands on Linux. First, we looked at the su command, then we looked at the sudo command. We ended this lesson by discussing the passwd command.
Please, everyone, remember one thing, that on tomorrow we have a presentation. So please make sure you present your presentation in tomorrow's class. And one more thing, Sunday we have a final exam. So make sure you have the ID card. If you don't have any ID card, so please talk to the college and collect it from the college. So for the final exam, we need ID card starting your exam. And you need to use the Chrome, you need to use the computer. You cannot use your mobile phone maybe, but I'm not here. Please to use the computer. So please remember, tomorrow we have a presentation, and after then day, that means Sunday, we have a final exam.
In this demonstration, we're going to talk about password and account lockout policies. Enforcing these policies on a Windows workstation can dramatically increase the overall security of your system, so it's important to understand, at the very least, the basic measures you have available. We want to accomplish two things with the password policies in this lesson. First, we want to make it so that an attacker can't keep trying passwords over and over without any ramifications. Second, we want to make sure that the passwords users define for their accounts are strong, meaning that they're not too easy for an attacker to guess. For Windows computers that aren't part of a domain, which is the case here, these password policies are found in Local Security Policy. So let's come down here and search for Local Security Policy. We go to Account Policies to see a list of all the available options. Let's start with Password Policies. These policies are going to define the parameters that users will have to stay within to create accounts on our system. First off is the minimum password length policy. Notice that it's set to 0 by default, meaning that there's no minimum password length right now. With the policy configured like this, I could make a password that's 1 character long. That's a really bad idea. Basically, the longer a password is, the harder it's going to be to guess. Right now, the industry standard is at least 8 characters. Longer is better, assuming you can remember it. Let's go ahead and just use 8 for our purposes today. When you define this length, you need to be careful. If you're security conscious, the temptation is to crank this number way up to 14 or more. Remember that the longer you make a password, the more difficult it is to remember. And the more difficult the password is to remember, the more likely it's going to be that your users are going to write it down somewhere. So just always keep that in mind. Let's click OK to move on. Next, we want to look at the Password Must Meet Complexity Requirements policy. Notice that this is disabled by default. Let's go ahead and enable it. We'll go over to the Explain tab to learn what this policy actually does. Right here it tells us that if this policy is enabled, passwords have to meet the following minimum requirements. It can't contain the user's account name or parts of the user's full name that exceed 2 consecutive characters. It has to be at least 6 characters long, and it has to contain characters from 3 of the following 4 categories. Uppercase characters A through Z, lowercase characters A through Z, numbers 0 through 9, and non-alphabetical characters like exclamation mark, $, pound sign, percentage, and so on. Alright, our policy is enabled now. A user's password has to contain characters from at least 3 of these 4 categories. It's important to note that when we turn this policy on, it's not actually going to be enforced on existing passwords. It'll only be enforced the next time the user changes their password. If we click OK, it shows us that it's enabled. Now we have a minimum length set to 8 characters, and we've specified that it needs to be complex as well. Next, we need to look at the maximum password age. Right now it's set to 42 days. This parameter specifies how long a user can have the same password. Previous guidelines suggested that the longer a password is in use, the more likely it is to be compromised. Recent research suggests, though, that changing passwords frequently can actually make you more vulnerable to security breaches. Regardless, Microsoft still recommends frequent changes. Let's go ahead and set a maximum password age of 30 days. Users will be forced to change their passwords every month. It seems reasonable. I'll just click OK to move on. Now we need to look at enforced password history. Right now, this option is disabled because it's set to 0 and no passwords are currently remembered. If we enable this policy, we're telling Windows to go ahead and remember a certain number of past user passwords. If we do, users won't be allowed to reuse any of those old passwords that Windows kept in memory. Since the value is 0 right now, a user could just keep using their password over and over again. That's not very good from a security standpoint. We'll tell Windows to remember 5 passwords. That means the user has to use 5 unique passwords before they'll be allowed to reuse a previous one. We'll click OK again. Now let's go to minimum password age. This policy is a little bit confusing to new system administrators. A maximum password age makes sense, right? We don't want users to have the same password for a long period of time. But why would we care about setting a minimum password age? Why would we want to set a barrier for how long a user has to keep the same password before they change it? The issue here is that some users want to keep using their favorite password, and so they'll use that password over and over. But since we've enforced password history, they have to use 5 new passwords before they can use an old password again anyway, right? Well, some users are smart and will just change their password 5 times in a row within a few minutes so they can get back to their favorite password. That's why we set a minimum password age. Both these settings work in conjunction for better security. Like the maximum age, this is set to 0 by default. Let's change that. I'm going to go with a 5-day minimum. Now our user will have to wait 25 days before they can reuse an old password. I'll select OK again. Alright, there's one more policy here under password policy that you should be familiar with. This is one that you should almost never enable. It's called store passwords using reversible encryption. The only time you'd ever want to enable this is if you were on a very old network that uses older Windows NT systems. We're not, so we're going to leave it set to the default setting of disabled. Now let's take a look at account lockout policy. The goal behind configuring account lockout is to prevent intrusion attempts. A common attack technique is for attackers to try one password after another on a given user account, hoping that they'll eventually find the right one. Account lockout policies configure the system so that it locks if someone tries to log in a certain number of times incorrectly within a given time period. If that happens, we're going to assume that they're not the real user. The first parameter we need to look at is the account lockout threshold. This specifies the number of invalid login attempts we want to allow. Right now it's set to 0. That disables the policy, and that's not a good thing because an attacker can just sit there and try one password after another until they find the right one. We want to provide the legitimate user with a few opportunities to enter the wrong password because that happens to all of us once in a while. I'll go ahead and give the user 3 invalid logon attempts. An authorized user should be able to get it right in that number of tries. I'll click OK. Notice that when I do, this window suggests that we change the values of the other policies to the values specified here. It's going to set the account lockout duration to 30 minutes, and the reset account lockout counter after policy to 30 minutes as well. That's fine with me. Using these settings, you're going to slow an attacker way down. They'll only be able to try 3 different passwords inside of a 30-minute window before the account gets locked. And then we told the system to wait 30 minutes before they can try to log in again. This is especially important in today's world because password cracking has gotten pretty complex. There are password cracking engines that can throw out massive amounts of data at a time from huge lists of words and phrases. Something like that could break a system's defenses in no time if you didn't have these precautions set up. Alright, at this point, we've greatly increased our system's overall security. If you compare the system's security now to what it was when we started this demo, you'll see that it's going to be a lot more difficult for an attacker to break in and compromise our data. And that'll wrap up everything for now. In this lesson, we talked about how to secure our systems by setting password and account lockout policies.
In this demonstration, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about managing user authentication. On this particular Windows system, I've set up an account lockout policy to prevent attackers from trying to break into the system by submitting one password after another and trying to guess what a given user's password is. To see this, we can go down here and search for Local Security Policy. Click it, and then we're going to go to Account Policies, Account Lockout Policy. Now, as you can see, I've set an account lockout threshold of 3 invalid logon attempts. That means if someone enters the wrong password for a given user more than 3 times, the user's account is going to be locked, and the user is not going to be allowed to try to authenticate anymore. As you can also see, we set a duration of 30 minutes. So if I try to log on incorrectly 3 times, the account gets locked out for 30 minutes. I can't log on again until one of 2 things happens. Either 30 minutes passes or an administrator goes in and manually re-enables the account lockout counter. I've also set a reset account lockout counter policy after 30 minutes. This means that 30 minutes must pass without an invalid login attempt occurring before the account lockout counter is going to be reset back to 0. Again, the idea here is that we want to prevent someone from sitting down at this computer and just trying password after password after password, hoping to guess what it is. This is a very common attack technique because users will stalk somebody on Facebook or Instagram and learn all they can about that person. Then they will try to log in as that person using the user account and will try things like using their spouse's name, their girlfriend's name, or their boyfriend's name. Then they will try their pet's name, their favorite sports team, and the city where they were born in. All those different things in an attempt to guess that user's password. That's because a lot of users still use weak passwords that use personally identifying information within them. So we've got a policy set up. Let's go ahead and test how it works. We're going to log off as our administrative user and log in as one of our normal users, B. Smith. Go down here, right-click, and click Sign Out. Okay, we're logged out of our administrative account. We're going to log in to our B. Smith account, Barb Smith. Now we are deliberately going to use the wrong password, and we're going to do this 3 times. This will deliberately lock out the account. As you can see, on the 4th attempt, the reference account is currently locked out and may not be logged onto. Now that we've entered the password too many times, we can no longer try to authenticate. As we said earlier, one of 2 things has to happen. Either wait until the 30 minutes passes that I configured for my lockout duration, or I need to go in as an administrator and unlock this account. So now let's assume that this person, Barb Smith, was the person logging in and was not an attacker, but really was Barb Smith. She just forgot her password and was entering the wrong password too many times. She probably, as a user, doesn't know what the duration of the account lockout is. She's probably just going to call the help desk and say, please get me back into my account. So we log back in as administrative user. What we need to do at this point is unlock the B. Smith account. To do this, we're going to go down here, right-click our Windows icon, and we're going to go to Computer Management, Local Users and Groups, and expand that. Then we're going to go to Users. Now, you can see all of our users here on this local system. We can see Barb Smith. If we double-click, we can see that Barb Smith is currently locked out. As a system administrator, I have the authority to disable this. I can re-enable Barb Smith's account by simply turning that option off and clicking OK. So if we go back in, we can see Barb Smith is no longer locked out. Now that B. Smith is able to log into the system again, we still have a problem, right? Why did she get locked out in the first place? Well, because she forgot her password. I don't know her password. The system administrator should never know the user's password. Since she's forgotten it as well, there's no way to get into the system. What we want to do is change B. Smith's password so that she can log into the system. This still presents a problem because if I change B. Smith's password and I communicate that password to Barb Smith, then both of us know her password. That's a bad security practice. Only the user should know the password. The administrator should not. So what we're going to do is double-click B. Smith, and we're going to select User Must Change Password at Next Login. Click OK. This allows me to essentially create a new password for B. Smith's user account Communicate that to bsmith and allow her then to log in using that password. But she'll be prompted that she has to change the password at that point. So we are really creating a one-time temporary password. She'll change it on the first login, and then I don't know it anymore. So our security rules have not been violated. I'm going to go back, click Set Password, click Proceed, set her new password, confirm. The problem you have to be aware of here is if you do change a user's password in computer management using local users and groups, it doesn't update the passwords for any of their security certificates. Specifically, those used for encrypting files in the file system. So, if I change the password for bsmith and Barb Smith has encrypted files in this file system, if I change the password, she will lose access to those files. If you do change bsmith password, the password for all those encrypted files will change and she will lose that access. If you reset the password the way we've just done it, where it prompts the user to change the password at first login, then the system updates the password for the security certificates so she won't lose that access. Since the user does not know her password and I don't know her password, we're going to go ahead and proceed. I know for a fact, in this case, that bsmith does not have any encrypted files in the file system. So now that we've already created the password for bsmith, we can log back in as bsmith and be prompted to change the password upon login. So that's it for this demonstration. In this demo, we talked about managing user authentication. We first looked at user account lockout policies, and we locked a user's account by entering the wrong password too many times. Then we unlocked the user's account and reset the password with the temporary password that the user could be prompted to change the next time they log in to the system.
This demonstrator demo we'll do in the next course. Next course means from the next week we'll start the Windows. So in there we'll do these things. So let's watch another video from test out.
In this demonstration, we're going to work with certmanager.msc, the certificate manager tool for Windows. Certificates can be imported, exported, deleted, modified, or requested using the Certificates Manager console for the Microsoft Management Console. Importing a certificate onto a Windows machine has become quite simple. If you browse to the location where the certificate is being stored, then double-click on it, the Import Certificate wizard will launch. I'll then need to answer a few questions about the type of certificate it is and where it should be stored, and the certificate will now be visible in the Certificates Manager console. Let's look at Certificates Manager. I'll launch it by searching for certmanager.msc. When launched, the Certificates Manager console is shown. As you can see, there are many different categories of certificates used for various functions. The certificates that I'm currently viewing are specific to the current user that is logged in. When working on servers, additional contexts are available. The certificate I imported is classified as an intermediate certificate authority. Therefore, that is where I will find the newly imported cert. If you're unsure of the type of certificate you've imported, there is a Find Certificates function that will search for a cert. I can search for various fields, although the Issued By field is commonly what's used, since where the certificate came from will usually be an important part of the cert. Under the Intermediate Certification Authorities, certificates, are several certificates listed. The one I'm interested in is listed. Sometimes it's necessary to copy certificates from one machine to another. This can be done by exporting using the Certificates Manager console, then importing on the target system. To export a cert, highlight the cert you want to export, right-click on it, then select All Tasks, Export. The Certificate Export wizard will be launched. Follow the prompts, including what format the certificate should be in, and the name and path where the key should be exported. The exported certificate can then be imported on another machine or backed up. The last task we'll look at is deleting a certificate. Similar to exporting a cert, simply find it in the Certificate Manager console, then right-click it, then select Delete. That's it for this demonstration. We've shown you how to import, export, and delete a certificate using the Certificates Manager console on Windows.
So up to this class, so anyone has any question about anything, let's discuss that part. Is there anyone has any question about anything?
Hi, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Samsur Rahman, sir.
Sir?
Mahir, sorry. Mahir, go ahead. Mahir.
Yeah, I have a question regarding I did sign up for test out, and so the lessons, right? There's 14 lessons, and which one? Because there's 2 exams, right? For CompTIA A plus for the exam, there's core 1 and core 2.
Yes.
So when you go inside test out, there's 14 lessons. So like they haven't distinguished which one is the core 1 and core 2, like the lessons. If you could tell us like which one.
If you go to the, yes, thank you, Mahir.
Yeah.
If you start with your, most of that, they are not saying which one is the core 1 part and core 2 part, but sometimes you can see mixed up, yeah, because our hardware and software are mixed everywhere. So as a result, it's mixed up. But sometimes they will mention that this part is like, I click in the course introduction. Let's check in here. You can see there is hardware, software, okay. There is test out, CompTIA part 1. There is a few things will be you need to study for the CompTIA A part, CompTIA 1. Let's click in here. Protection and safety. This is the CompTIA part 2. You can see CompTIA A plus 220, CompTIA 1102. 02 means part 2, code 2.
Okay.
So from the protection and safety, some portions are, you can see this is the 4.4 and 4.5. These 2 part is core part 2. But the rest of are core part 1. So something they mention it, something, where is the 4.4? So let's go there. You can see 4.4 in here, but they write down in here. But ESD also be available in here in part 2. In the safety, you can see ESD in here, ESD in here. So some portion from in here also. But it's not exactly said this portion is part 1, this portion is part 2. But in normal sense, you need to know the part 1 is basically use the hardware part, and part 2 used for the software and security part. This 2 part is in the part 2, and this part is part 1. And troubleshooting is both places, hardware and software places. So you need to find out which one is the software and which one is hardware. But most of the thing are combination of these 2 things. And another thing, if you go to the exam, like if you practice the exam from in here, part 1 and part 2, 80% question will become. 80% means you will be pass. So for the passing purpose, maybe you need to 60 or 70% or 75% marks need. So most of the question will become from in here. So best practice all the question, and please it's remember all the times, then it will be helpful. Another thing, okay, I can see in here some portion is they write down in here. These domains are 1.1. These are from the part 1. You can see this is the part 1. They write down all the things in here. Which part is part 1? Okay, all the charts will be in here. And for the part 2, if you go to the part 2, then same thing maybe in here also. Okay, that exam will be start.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, it's a little bit
differentiate which one is which, and like, so that they make it easy for people to, like when you're studying, Otherwise,
yes,
it's kind of confusing a little bit.
Confusing, yeah, it's true. if you practice these questions, that's enough for the exam. Okay. Okay, sir. Mahesh?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
at least, no problem. At least practice it. At least certified one certificate, like anything which you prefer.
Yes,
Okay.
to get the certificate, you need to pass both of them, right? For
Right.
CompTIA Plus.
Yes, sir.
Hi, sir.
Hi,
I'm
Khan.
sorry I will be late.
No problem. It's okay, Khan. It's okay.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Bhaktash, do you want to add something?
Excuse me?
No, Khan. Bhaktash. I have to talk with the Bhaktash.
Yeah, I was just thinking the exam on Sunday, is it the same login for My City College or the ID
Yes,
card?
sir.
Oh, okay, perfect.
You need to use the ID card, and also our exam will be in our ct.ampaeducator.com.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. So tomorrow is our presentation day. So please make sure your presentation is ready and you can present it. Best of luck for next 2 days, tomorrow and final exam. And next week, we'll start the Windows course. So next week, we need to download lots of software. So for this reason, I will share the link of all the softwares in Sunday. Sunday, I will share all the things and you can download in the weekday, and we'll start in next class with that software. How to install it, how to work with them. I will show you everything step by step. So bye for now. See you tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m.